Okay, everyone, it just started recording. So as a reminder, you're being recorded. This will be made public to the Wake Forest community in the interest of making sure that all students have access. Caroline, if you could give me the share screen function, we'll get started with executive reports. We will begin with President Miles Middleton. For those of you who were in student government previously, we are going to be having the executive officers do the committee reporting with the slideshow, how cabinet did in the past. And that way this will be made available to you within minutes after Senate. Miles, if you wanted to go ahead and start giving your report until I get screen share access, that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So first of all, welcome back to Wake, everybody. I hope your summer was great. More importantly, I hope the first couple days of classes were great as well. I know we've been through a lot, not just as a student government, but just as individuals, especially with racial injustice throughout the summer, especially with COVID concerns over the summer as well, and especially coming onto campus, and especially an election coming up this November. So a lot of things to tackle, a lot of things to still handle. So thank you, Ellie, for pulling up the slides. But other than that, I'm excited to get this year going and definitely be around a great student government team from the executive to cabinet and to the Senate. So I'm happy to see all the things that we've done throughout the summer carry over into this fall and spring. And especially people think we're a thing now. So student government's actually real, on this campus and in other campuses. And then just going into my second point, just on standards as individuals on campus, I hope that you all are holding high the mantle and being leaders first, especially following all the guidelines that other our community members, such as and students, Caroline Walker and Victoria, who served on the Student Social Compact and building community groups, and other students in student government who served on other committees, worked really hard to try to implement some really good policies and guidelines for us to follow throughout this year. So hopefully we lead from the front there and just follow those standards and be an example for the community. For the elections task force and PLC, Drew will give more of an update on that, but we do have a resolution tonight for the elections task force to be created. And Drew will probably go into more about PLC and those little details there. On my last point, about meetings with administration. I know this year I'll be meeting with a lot of administration, probably more so than in the past. With that, I would love to start bringing more student government members into those meetings, especially committee members, especially senators who have immediate concerns to be brought up. So in the coming weeks, I'll try to fill up my schedule to see where the appropriate kind of messaging can be and where we can bring in people to those type of meetings. And hopefully from there, we can kind of collaborate on what issues we should be pressing, because I definitely don't want it just to come from me. I know other people have other concerns. So definitely make sure this community moves forward. I want to make sure that I'm including as many people as possible. And that's really my main report. The co-chairs have all this stuff because they took all the reins over. So the co-chairs have been amazing this summer. So I'm excited to see where everything's going, and welcome back.
Does anyone have any questions for Miles? If you do, please just feel free to come off mute. And if more than one person starts talking, I'll pick someone up. But any questions for Miles on his report? Any questions for Miles's report? All right, then moving on. Thank you, Miles. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Allie Swartzberg. I'm the Speaker of the House. I'm really excited for this year. I do just want to give you a few logistics pieces of information and then some more content type things. So first of all, fill in your committee preference forms. If you are a senator, they are due Thursday or Friday at the absolute latest, but Thursday would be ideal. You will have your committee assignment for next Tuesday. So that's kind of a quick turnaround. I have gotten some back from 5 of you last I checked, so that's really great. But if I don't get your preference form, I will just have to put you in a committee. So I would really prefer to get your form. As I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, we do need everyone to have their cameras on if you're going to be voting or counted as present. Normally, if we were in person, there would be an electronics rule. Obviously, that can't take place right now, but we have to make sure that everyone's being attentive when they're voting. If you are going to request the templates for writing legislation, as a senator, as a co-chair, you do have the ability to write legislation. If you want that template, please contact myself and the judiciary co-chairs. Those are Ethan and Sebastiano. We can then send you the template, but this kind of serves as a way for us to know that somebody is working on legislation, and we can track your progress and make sure any questions you might have are answered on the front end so that we don't run into any problems on the back end. To that point, we do have a pretty hefty legislative load today. There are 5 pieces of legislation on the docket, and so at the end of my report, I will very quickly just explain to you a couple things, and then before we vote, I will explain those things to you again. We are working on a process packet. There has been some confusion in the past as to like what exactly our practices are. They're hard to find sometimes, and so we are making you a packet, and by we I mean myself, judiciary, and the parliamentarian. It will have tips for writing legislation, the new statement process that you should have all received, which is a little bit long, so I apologize on that one. It will have an organizational flowchart, which I will show you on the next slide, and some more helpful documents. And then finally, if you would like to have a guest speaker or a Senate workshop, that is awesome. I would love to be able to fit that in. It's a little bit easier now virtually, actually, because people can show up from the comfort of their homes at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. If this relates to your committees, I would just ask that you please talk to your co-chair first and then copy them when you email me. But if you want to bring a speaker in, I just ask for 1 week of notice. And then this is the organizational flowchart I mentioned. As you can see, there is a cabinet which goes down to the senators. So for our new senators, you report directly to your co-chairs of your committee. In most cases, if it's not related to your co-chair's jobs and you want to talk to somebody still, come to me. But then your co-chairs will report up to myself and the rest of the exec. So just know that that's the structure. You will be provided a copy of this, but that is the organizational flowchart. And for voting, we will have to do some stuff a little bit differently. So I will just give you guys that rundown right before we get to the legislation portion. Does anyone have questions for my report? Any questions? Thank you, everyone. Moving on to Victoria, our treasurer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Parker. I'm the treasurer for this year. So just kind of a rundown of how spending is going to work. If you want to spend money on something for student government using the student government budget, please contact your committee co-chair first, and then they'll reach out to me. I just need to know when things are being spent and kind of go through the formal process. So our first Student Budget Advisory Committee meeting was today at 5 p.m. Student Budget Advisory Committee is usually referred to as SBAC. So if you hear me say that, that's what that means. And next Tuesday, September 8th, SBAC will start hearing their requests. That's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for Victoria? Any questions for Victoria? All right, then moving on to our secretary, Caroline Walker.
Hi, so we'll start live streaming Senates next week. Hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties. For now, this meeting will be recorded and shared with the public just for the sake of transparency. As far as the attendance policy, Senate is mandatory, and you get 3 excused and 2 unexcused absences. So if you're unable to make it, please fill out the excuse form. It's linked to all the events on the Google Calendar. And if you have trouble finding it, you can just email me or shoot me a text. You're also required to complete 2 extracurricular events every semester. And these are just events that are usually hosted or co-sponsored by student government, like major and minor fair, or mental health week events or things like that. So if you go attend a shift at one of those, then you can count that as your extracurricular event. And you just have to fill out the form, which is linked to the event on the Google Calendar again. And if you need help finding that, just let me know. We'll also be starting student government socials this year. Like we did these last year, and they were like random hangouts. And I will send you a form, and it's basically to increase relational leadership and help you get connected with other people in student government. You can just find a time to like meet up somewhere on campus or meet over Zoom if that's more comfortable for you. But it's just to get to know each other better and start building those relationships, because student government's a great way to network and meet new people. So that's all for my report.
Does anyone have any questions for Caroline? Any questions for Caroline? All right, thank you, Caroline. Moving on to our Chief of Staff, Drew Skilton.
Hey everyone. So we are filling our positions for the spots we've opened for senator. It's a form that's due Friday night. Anyone who is not a first year can apply, and we'll send the link out in the follow-up email. If you have any questions on that, just reach out. So as Miles mentioned, we're going to have legislation later tonight about the 2020 elections task force. So pending today's vote, we hope to place a center on the task force that would essentially just help bring everyone together and work together in the 2020 election. And just a quick update related to that, the church just off campus was finally approved as an early voting site, which is a huge win for student access to voting. But that's it for me.
Any questions related to Drew's report? No questions for Drew? All right, moving on then to our lovely advisor, Tim Wilkinson.
Did you just say I'm your lovely advisor? I just want to make
You
sure.
are lovely, Tim.
I didn't know.
I can't call you Timothy, so I had to add something
You
else
may
that
not
would get a
call me
response.
Timothy.
Right.
Good evening,
Sorry.
everybody. Now, come on, everyone to open your
Hi,
mics
Tim.
for a
Hi,
second.
Tim.
Good evening, everybody. There it is.
How are you, Tim?
Good to see you all. Welcome back. It's good to see you all virtually. I'd say stop by the Office of Student Engagement. We're not allowed to have more than 3 people in our lobby at any time, so please don't stop by the Office of Student Engagement. We can meet virtually. I hope you all had a good summer. It's good to see you all. I have a bunch tonight, so I don't think that will shock you. So let me just go through some things. One, I'm sure you've all been paying attention to the Our Way Forward website. It's going to be incredibly important that you do, keeping up to date on the dashboard, keeping up to date on the status of the university. I think right now, suffice it to say, we are cautiously optimistic. We had a very good first weekend, all things considered. I'm sure you're all paying attention to the national picture, and I'm really pleased with how everyone's performed so far. We know we're in a tough spot. We know that, what we're asking of you all is immense. We know that the things we do for fun are limited right now. And we know that, as a colleague of mine said, every day feels like a week, because for so many of the things we're doing, we're in make it happen mode still trying. Your leadership is going to be incredibly important this semester, because I can tell you from talking to colleagues across the nation, nobody has figured this out. The ability for you all to work with us to communicate things back, share your concerns, and also advocate for the things going on are going to be important. One of the areas I want to make sure that you are all paying attention to is the policies. The policies page on Our Way Forward. One of the very unfortunate, but there was just really no way around it this summer, is there were so many pieces that we were putting together when we got word as to what it was going to look like moving forward, that many of our policies didn't come out in a sequence that we would like them to. I understand that can be confusing. I am trying to figure out, and I'm going to ask for you all to figure out what's the best way for me to help you understand what policy confusion there is, because I'm sure it's immense. Normally, I feel like if we were sitting in Benson together, I'd tell you just to fire away. We can do that as well. I'm also wondering if it makes sense, and I guess I'm asking Caroline if it makes sense for you to compile a list of questions or concerns. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Caroline. I'm just thinking about this as I go. And that I can address over the course of the week, and we can spend more time on next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. I do want to spend a second. The one policy I don't want to say is more important, because they're all important, is the health and safety measures for student activities. That is a policy that I was charged with working with a team to put together. That's a policy I'm going to ask you all to pay extra close attention to over the next week if you hadn't yet. It's the policy that includes decisions such as the decision we made to close all residence hall lounges for the foreseeable future, how we've put together, a lot of schools made the decision that performing arts activities, a cappella groups, acting, dance cannot continue. We made the decision to allow them to continue, but with very strict guidelines based on where we're at. It talks about how food can be utilized. It talks about how and when you can reserve spaces. So rather than rattle through it this week, if you haven't gone to our way forward and looked at it, I'm going to copy it in here for you all. I'll obviously take any questions this week, but I want you all to take a look at this and go over it next week. One of the things that came with this policy was every student organization needs to have 4 executive board members trained. That training's available on Canvas if you haven't taken it yet for one of your student organizations. I encourage you to take it even if you don't need to, because the more you understand the policies and the more I can help you understand the rationale behind our decision making, the less confusion there'll be. I'm going to stop there for a second and see if there's any general policy questions. And I'm going to ask Braden, are you really outside or is that just your background? Because it looks like there's no breeze or anything.
No, I'm outside in Taylor
Okay.
Courtyard.
It's a breezeless night on Taylor Courtyard. Dave
Yeah.
Myatt, I see you had your hand up.
I do. I have a question about the policies. So today, Roy Cooper announced that we are entering stage 2.5. How do Wake Forest policies reflect that?
That is a great question, and I figured it'd be the first question. I can tell you that that decision hasn't been made yet, but one of the things that we talked about in 2 different forums, one with our fraternity and sorority leaders and one with student organizations, is that Wake Forest is going to make decisions based on the environment at Wake Forest. So the governor came out with his decision today. We may still make the decision to stay where we are for the time being, and that's for a few different reasons. I don't think any of that will shock you. One, we're not going to try to compare the environment of Wake Forest University to the state of North Carolina generally. We are most concerned about our environment, and if that means taking a little bit more time to assess the situation, that's something we're going to do. I am not part of that decision-making team, but I can tell you, for me personally, if I made the choice, I would say we stay at the 25-10 rule for right now. I expect we'll have that decision in the next 24 to 48 hours. We know we've got to communicate out well before the weekend, but I would tell you all that the best thing you can do is preach caution to your classmates right now, because if I had to bet, I'm guessing that's where we will stay for I'll say for the short term. I can't say I know when we would move forward. I think a lot depends on how the next few weeks progress, but I would not be surprised if we stayed where we were. Great question. I had that as second in my bullet point. I can't see all of you, so I would say if you have questions, just fire out, and whoever asks will be picked up on Zoom.
Any questions for Tim at this juncture?
It's the first meeting. You're all still warming up. If you do have questions, though, I am going to ask you, sorry, Caroline, to give you more work, but to send it to Caroline and she can compile, and I'll be happy to bring them next week. Raise your hand if you've downloaded Cork yet. I am so sad to see how many. All right, Jess Schmidt, you're nodding your head, so you didn't raise your hand. This is so much more fun in Zoom. I can call people out. If you've not downloaded Cork yet, please do so. Cork, C-O-R-Q. I assume you all know about the link, but the Cork is our online involvement app that allows students to see what events are going on from their phone. We are trying to get everybody to use it, because not only is it going to be used for seeing what's going on, but when you're running events, it has a QR code reader. So we're going to be using it for contact tracing as we move forward with events. It's incredibly important that everybody has Cork. Again, it's C-O-R-Q. It's a little red square. You think I would have it ready to go to show you, but I didn't. Let me see if I can bring it up here quickly. Okay. So I'm sure you're, see bottom, I can't, I'm really struggling tonight. It's hard to see, but my bottom right, it's a red circle. So please download that. One of the things I do want to make sure you all know as we're talking about policies is our event approval process this semester. every event on campus needs to run through the university. And I don't just mean for students, I mean for faculty and staff as well, especially live events. If you're in a student organization, you'll come through the Office of Student Engagement and the event planning process. Every unit, or if you work with a student-facing unit, will go through an event planning process that our university events office put together. Long story short, there's two processes. These events are all looked at for health and safety plans to make sure they're in line with COVID-19. And then once they're approved, they go through a second process where we look at the space that's going to be requested, because we know space is at a premium. So we have a prioritization process. We have, besides, we know rooms are limited this semester. We have right now 8 tents that are available. I'm sure you've seen them around campus for reservable space. Manchester Plaza tents, contrary to popular belief, are not those tents. Those tents are used for dining, although you can hang out there. But it's important that you all, and again, I'll walk you all through the event planning process, whether it's for student government or your specific organizations. Something else I wanted to make sure you all knew is, if you're familiar with the student activity fee, and speaking of that, Victoria, you and I need to chat because I cannot remember who you want student government's rep to be. We can talk after this, or you can message it to me. But the student activity fee committee is still meeting every Friday morning from 10 to noon. One of the things that we are trying to do this semester to expedite decisions, if you put in a student activity fee, whether it's for student government, whether it's for a student organization that you're involved in, if it's less than $500, you are not coming in for a meeting. We're going to approve that virtually within 24 to 48 hours, because one of the things we are trying to do is expedite programming. So I want to make sure you all know that. I'm going to stop there because I could probably give you about another 10 things, and there's going to be a lot this semester. But we know that we are rebuilding everything. So I appreciate your patience with us, as well as your ability to work with us to help figure things out. So if you have questions, feel free to ask, or feel free to put them in the chat box.
Thank you, Tim. Does anyone have questions? I see Ethan's hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a quick question.
I was going to say, Ethan, you're not on my screen. Let me find you. Go ahead and ask why I'm looking for you.
Yeah, so my quick question was, obviously the chartering process is suspended until further notice. So will student engagement be willing to give out any guidance to unchartered organizations about what they should be doing this semester?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is, and I mean, I'll let, I don't want to steal Rory and Amber's thunder, but it is still on hold for a number of reasons. One of which is that some of the changes we wanted to make that our attorneys looked at, it's just unfortunately not a priority right now with all the COVID legalities that we are working through. Secondly, if you don't know this, with the hiring freeze that was put in place in the summer, we are down 2 staff members in my office, as well as a number of graduate advisors. So I need to think through what our capacity is. We will still work with those organizations to help set them up for when chartering is ready, and the SOC is working on that. And we'll work with them to figure out event planning. So I would tell them to reach out to our office just like normal. We will not stop supporting those groups. We just have to figure out when the chartering process will go back online. The SOC will take the lead.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for Tim? No. No questions for Tim. All right, moving on to our committee reports. We will begin with academic committee.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Braden, one of the academic co-chairs. Ava, you wanna?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ava.
All right. So over summer, we joined an academic affairs group, which is comprised of a bunch of different people like us from other schools around the country. So we had a meeting with them a couple of days ago. And it was a lot more of the same. We discussed our university's responses to COVID and things that are going on. The University of Miami is a mess. Okay, so other than that, we're gathering ideas for the major minor fair, since we have to completely rethink how to do it this year. And we've also been looking at the school's bureaucratic structure and trying to understand it more as part of our meetings with the Dean of College's office.
Anything to add, Ava?
No, he pretty much said everything.
Any questions for Ava and Braden? Yes, Ethan.
just to clarify on that last point, could you be more specific on the scope of your examination for examining the bureaucratic structure of the university?
Yeah, so we met with them, I think it's like 2 weeks ago now, and brought some ideas. And they gave us some resources on trying to understand how change actually can happen within the university. So they gave us some reading to do, which we are yet to do, but we will be doing that. It's really just trying to understand like how faculty senate works and stuff like that, because a lot of the changes we want to do, especially with academic concerns, requires going through those channels instead of like, I don't know. It's just more complicated with academic things because of how much power faculty have on campus.
Any other questions for academic? And I apologize, I can only see 4 of your faces on my screen and 2 of them are the co-chairs. So please just unmute if you have questions. No? All right, moving on to our next committee, Campus Life.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave. Oh, sorry, I guess Annie isn't here.
Oh,
co-chair.
sorry. I'm here. I'm Annie. I'm the other co-chair.
I hope you guys are doing well. So I was just gonna report on. We're currently working on the First Year in Focus initiative with Allie. It's a mentorship program for freshmen where sophomores, juniors, and seniors are able to serve as mentors and be kind of a connecting figure between freshman life and upperclassmen life on campus. And it's pretty low commitment, but it's gonna make a really big impact on the people being mentored. So if you'd like to join as a mentor, please let us know and help us market it. The first meeting is gonna be September 9th.
Anyone have any questions for Campus Life? Any questions? All right, moving on to diversity and inclusion.
Hey guys, I'm Uma Bernardo. I'm one of the co-chairs.
Hi everyone, my name's Pilar. I'm also a co-chair. Some of you may have seen it. We sent out an email last night. It went out to a lot of student leaders on campus about ways your organization can support the Black community, both nationally and on campus. Another thing is the sexual health survey that all students should have gotten just came out. Please do that. It's something that the Office of Wellbeing and the Women's Center have been working on for a really long time. It's just giving students accessibility to different reproductive resources on campus, including condoms and other things. And then the last thing is we had an introduction meeting with Erica Still, just to kind of, similar to what academic committee was talking about, but just to kind of see what faculty, like the committees they're on and how stuff in the background works when it comes to like curriculum changes and overhaul.
Anything to add, Uma?
That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Any questions for diversity and inclusion? No questions for diversity and inclusion? All right, moving on to judiciary.
Hey, I'm Sebastiano. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Judiciary Committee.
Hey everyone, I'm Ethan Werner. I'm one of the other co-chairs of the Judiciary Committee. So just going through our updates. First, the updated statement process. By this point, you should have all received that statement process. Reach out to us if you haven't. Obviously, it's a very long document, and I apologize for that. I tend to be a little bit wordy. And I know some of my working group fellows kind of called me out on that. But for your purposes, if you haven't reviewed it, please review the latter sections of the document just because that's what's going to be most relevant to you. The updated processes are binding, so please review that if you haven't and ask us any questions that you may have. As we have been doing all summer, we are continuing to review the governing documents and update processes where necessary. As Ali alluded to earlier in her presentation, we will be delivering a packet or a process packet to the Senate at some point with updated processes, so be on the lookout for that. We're also looking on to developing a more comprehensive policy/conduct pamphlet/app We're currently working with the Student Code of Conduct Office, Dr. Still, among other partners to make that a reality. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. We have more initiatives on the horizon that we're all very excited about, so stay tuned for that. And then finally, a note on bystander intervention. As it is our responsibility as the Judiciary Committee to raise awareness for the regulations of the university, I felt it germane to leave a section at the end of this presentation just to remind you all that if you see something this year, especially this year, that goes against university policy, feel free as a bystander to step in and correct it. I know it can be intimidating at times to tell someone to follow the rules, but please be mindful of the fact that we must follow the rules this year, especially with COVID. So that's all from us. Sebastian, anything to add?
Yeah, well, look out for a new business coming up and join our committee. That's all I can say.
Awesome. And just a small point to add, because I forgot to do it in my report, Vivian is also in this meeting, and she's the parliamentarian and has been working very closely with Judiciary this summer. So I just wanted to draw your attention there. Does anyone have any questions for Judiciary? Any questions? All right, moving on to public relations.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess and I'm one of the co-chairs.
Hi, and I'm Brooke and I'm the other co-chair.
So basically continuing what we kind of worked on this summer, we did a lot of reposting for different accounts, tried to generate more followers and interaction with our social media accounts. Recently though, we created a graphic for Senate appointments, FDOC, and executive spotlights, which you may have seen on our Instagram. Once this freshman election process starts to get going, we're planning on doing a lot of different posts and highlighting features about that. So kind of keep on the lookout for all of those things.
We're also making a post sometime this week about the new environmental major and minor. We worked in coordination with the Office of Sustainability on that. So we're trying to get more people excited about that. And also, we actually just got confirmation about the First Year in Focus program, and so that graphic will also be posted soon. Something that we've been talking about in Cabinet is just if you see something on Instagram and we haven't posted it yet, either message me or Jess, or just DM it to the Instagram account. We try to catch everything, but we don't always. So if your particular major posts something and you want us to repost it, just reach out to us. I think that's everything.
Thank you guys. Does anyone have any questions for PR? Does anyone have any questions? All right, moving on to physical planning.
Hi, I'm Megan and I'm one of the physical planning co-chairs.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm the other one.
Okay, so first off, lately I've been spending a lot of time with Meredith, getting her caught up on everything going on in physical planning. She's been awesome and has stepped right in. So I'm looking forward to a great semester working with her. And right now we're addressing a few constituent concerns, which, as y'all know, is a lot of physical planning, even though I know there's a constituent concerns section of Senate. So far it's included concerns about the wake line not running the target in Haynes Mall and the water heat in Collins. We met with Mr. Wise, who is basically heads Deacon Dining in the summer, and we're looking forward to speaking with him throughout the semester about how dining's looking in the age of COVID, as well as a few other things that we're working on sort of behind the scenes. So Meredith, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think you hit it all.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for physical planning? Feel free to come off mute if you do. Any questions? All right, moving on to SOC.
Hey guys, I'm Amber.
Hey, I'm Rory, and we're SOC. So you probably heard Tim talking about some of the stuff that we're doing relating to student organizations. We're kind of at the moment in a bit of a freeze when it comes to actual chartering operations, and that's partially due to COVID, partially because of kind of the way that we are restructuring chartering, and partially because of some of the staffing in student engagement. But at the moment, we are working with Aaron Forbes, who is sort of our new Kathy Arnett, and Tim on creating like a well-being check for our existing organizations, sort of like a short poll. How are you doing? You know, what do you might need for support? If you have any questions, stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you all have any sort of ideas for questions that should kind of be going out to student organizations, things that you all think should be asked, that should be checked up on, please let us know. So in general, that's just kind of what the semester is going to be looking like. It's kind of a unique opportunity for SOC this semester, since we don't have as much to worry about in regards to the actual chartering process. We can work on supporting the actual organizations that are on campus more, and particularly the organizations that have been chartered more recently in the last couple of years, especially in this time, seeing how we can support them and help them stay on campus with their charter.
Yeah.
Amber, sorry, Rory.
Go for it. No, go, Tim. Go for it.
I just wanted to follow up with what Rory and Amber are talking about. One of our, I'm excited to look at Cork and the link in the last few days and see that our organizations are really starting to move forward with their introductory meetings. And we know that when we go on September 7th to being able to do live events, that things are going to start popping. But one of our big concerns is just making sure that our student organizations feel not only supported, but like they have the ability and capacity to do events virtually or smaller events, which we're not used to. So the more you're able to support Rory and Amber in figuring out questions to ask them, this is information that I can say the entire university is asking me about. So we really want to make sure our student orgs are going.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for SOC or for Tim?
Oh, wait, really quickly. When it comes to chartering, we are not updating the chartering process the way that we were planning on it last year. We're sticking with the current one if that does end up getting rolling again, just for all clarification's sake.
All right, anything else, SOC? All right, any questions for SOC? All right, thank you, everyone. So we will move on to the rest of our agenda. I know that was a little bit of a long haul at this point, but sorry, one second. I'm pulling up everything that we need to get through. So moving on to our new business, I'm going to give you all a little bit of a crash course right now in some pertinent information. Once we have the new senators appointed, not the election, the appointments that Drew is handling, then we will do like a big workshop on Robert's Rules of Order and how voting and our process works. But for today's purposes, this is the information that you all need to know. There are 3 voting options. They are yes, no, and abstain. Yes is I agree with this resolution. I agree with its outcomes, its goals. I'm voting yes, and that is contributing to hopefully passing it. No is I don't agree with this. I don't want my name associated with it. I do not agree that it should pass. Abstain is I have no feeling, or the feeling that I have isn't strong, and my vote will be counted as present, but that I'm not voting in the affirmative or in the negative for this piece of legislation. Everyone does have to vote. Your vote is public because you are a senator and will be published on the website. So just know that is the case. There are 2 kinds of voting that will happen. There are the voice call vote and the roll call vote. A voice call vote is what you do for motions. So like say Ethan motions to adjourn the meeting. I would say all in favor, and in an in-person meeting, you would say aye, and then I would say those opposed, and those who are opposed would say nay, and then whichever one had more, I would say the ayes have it, and we would adjourn. This is pertinent because in voting for legislation, we have to move to the previous question to vote on the legislation itself, or we can move to extend or shorten the time for debate or the time for questions. So all motions need a second. Any senator can make a motion. Any senator can second a motion. And the type of vote we would do for that is the ayes and the nays kind of vote. That's a little chaotic over Zoom. It would be really hard for me to tell who did what. So we are going to use the raise hand function for that purpose. This is a little bit complicated, but if everyone clicks on participants at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to test it right now. Can everyone click on that? And then try to raise your hand. Cool. Seems like most people know how to do it already. Awesome. So once we do that, I can see everyone's voting, and I can do this thing where I can lower all hands. So once I say all those in favor, raise your hand, leave your hand, do not try to lower it. We need to count them all. I will then lower all the hands, and I will say those opposed, raise your hand, or the nays. And you would then raise your hand, Caroline would count them, and then I would lower all of them again, and that way we will be able to do a voice call vote over Zoom. The other kind of vote, as I mentioned, is a roll call vote. That is how we vote on amendments and legislation. So when we are finished going through the debate and discussion for the piece of legislation, we will say, move to the previous question. Someone will motion to move to the previous question. And then Caroline will read each of your names out, and she will say, like, how are you voting? And you will say yes, no, or abstain. And then that will be recorded with your name, and that's the thing that will be public. Your vote on an amendment is not public. Your vote on the legislation is public. So with that information, you can absolutely move to get information if at any point this becomes confusing to you, and then I can stop what we're talking about, answer your question, and then return to what we're talking about. Vivian is also here as a resource if you have any questions about the process, but that is how this will work. There's a lot of legislation. None of it is too crazy, so hopefully it will run smoothly. But I did just want to give you guys that little bit of information before we go into it. Does anyone have any questions before I just bring up our first piece of legislation? No? Okay. So our first piece of legislation is Senate Bill 1. I'm going to ask that the co-sponsors of this bill, who are Ethan and Sebastiano and myself, to please come off mute. I'm going to ask Ethan if you could please read through this just for the sake of confusion, and then we will explain it a little bit right after.
Are you going to pull the
yes, I'm going to share
my
my screen.
Okay.
I hope this is the right one. Can everyone see it?
All right. So this bill intends to amend the requirement for in-person voting with current phase 2 restrictions for COVID in the state of North Carolina, but also with university policy. The current requirements would be basically impossible for us to fulfill, especially for committee level voting. So basically it reads as follows: be it enacted by the Senate of the Wake Forest University Student Government here assembled, that Article 4, Section 2 of the Wake Forest University Student Government bylaws shall be amended as follows. A senator must be present to have that senator's vote count. In the event that circumstances require the speaker to call a virtual meeting of the legislature, a senator may be considered present for voting purposes if they are in attendance for the whole of a virtual meeting. Similarly, the speaker may also instruct the chairs of standing committees to hold their meetings virtually if conditions do not permit an in-person meeting. In such a case, committee members may be considered present for the purposes of voting if they're in attendance for the entirety of a virtual meeting. Section 2 of this amendment reads as follows. Article 4, Section 4 of the Wake Forest University Student Government bylaws shall be amended as follows. Members of standing committees may vote on matters before their committees if, 1, the committee has a quorum based on the number of its members present in a mutually acceptable and sanctioned meeting area, or 2, the members who are not physically present if the meeting is held in person are voice called or video called for the entirety of the meeting. And then that final provision in Section 3 was struck through this amendment. Essentially what this strives to do then is just to clarify the voting process for committee and Senate, and to allow for being counted for voting purposes over a virtual platform. I will yield back the remainder of my time and would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, so everyone, now I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. That is the amount of time we will have for questions. You can ask them to all of us, or you can ask them specifically to Ethan, myself, or Sebastiano. You can also move into debate and discussion and end the time early. So, or you can move to extend the time for questions. So I'm starting the timer now. Does anyone have any questions on the content of this resolution or bill? Sorry. If you have a question, please come off mute. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Move that we go into voting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand.
Parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chairman.
Move to debate and discussion.
He motioned to the vote. It was seconded. We have to vote on it. Vivian, would you like to answer the parliamentary? Or yes.
Yeah.
Ethan, would you like to ask your question to the parliamentarian?
Yes. Shouldn't we be motioning to move the previous question if that is what he intended?
Yeah.
Can I rescind my motion and instead motion to move the previous question?
Do I have a second?
Thank you.
Raise your hand if you are in favor of this motion. Caroline, when you have a count, can you please message me in the chat? All right, I'm going to lower all hands, and then once I do that, can I have those opposed please raise their hands? All right, I don't see any, so we will move to a vote. Caroline will do a roll call vote at this point.
Okay. Uma?
Yes.
Meredith?
Yes.
Miriam?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
Ava?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Nisha?
Yes.
Mariama?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Sebastiano?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Braden?
Yes.
Pilar?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Ethan?
Aye.
Edna?
Yes.
Yeah. The bill unanimously passes.
All right, guys, the bill passes. We will move on to the next piece of legislation, which is Senate Bill 2. I will share my screen. This is introduced again by Judiciary Co-Chair Ethan, President Miles Middleton, and myself. And this is related to the Elections Committee. Miles, could you please read through this bill once I share the screen?
Okay. Being enacted by the Senate of the Wake Forest University Student Government here assembled, Section 1, Statute 1, Section 4 of the Wake Forest University Student Government Statute shall be amended as follows. The executive officers and upperclassmen members of the Senate shall be elected in the spring. Spring elections shall be held immediately following spring break, with election week starting on the first Tuesday after vacation, and election day occurring on the second Tuesday after vacation. Freshman senators shall be elected in the fall. Fall elections should occur between the 3rd and 5th week after returning to school. Polls shall be open for 24 hours from 12 p.m. noon until 11:59 a.m. the following day. Section 2, this bill shall take effect immediately upon passage. Respectfully submitted, Ethan Werner, Miles Milton, Alice Whisper. So, essentially what we're doing here is just changing the time from midnight to noon, and then it votes all the way to the next day of noon. So results will be posted by noon of the next day.
And to clarify on this, that was because there was an issue with the midnight election starting in the spring. And because it was the middle of the night, it was a lot harder to make the change. No one was on campus, no one had access to their offices. And so this request has been made to change the voting time. So with that, I will set 2 minutes for questions. Reminder that you can move straight into debate and discussion. You can move to extend or shorten the time, and you can motion to the previous question for a vote. The timer is starting now. Does anyone have any questions for the co-sponsors?
I move the previous question.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand. I like how everyone's getting the hang of this. All right, Caroline, can you send me a message when you have the count?
Yeah, counting now. Okay.
All right, I do not see any hands. Last chance. All right, the ayes have it, so we will move into a roll call vote. Caroline, if you will.
Yep. Different order this time. Okay, Edna?
Yes.
Ava?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Sebastiano?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Ethan? Ethan?
Sorry.
Megan?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
Uma?
Yes.
Mariama?
Yes.
Brayden?
Aye.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Meredith?
Yes.
Nisha?
Kanisha, yes.
I'm sorry. Kanisha. Or Kanisha? Okay.
Yes, Kanisha.
Pilar?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the bill passes unanimously. If that's everyone. Moving on to Senate Resolution 2. We are almost halfway there. This one is short. I'm going to have to ask Brayden to leave, and by that I mean I'm going to have to kick you to a waiting room. But we will welcome you back shortly, Brayden. Put in right here. All right, Brayden's gone. This is sponsored by me. I will share my screen with you all. Senate Resolution 2, approving the appointment of Brayden Strachman as Speaker Pro Tempore. Resolved by the Senate of Wake Forest University Student Government here assembled that the Student Government Senate approves the appointment of Brayden Strachman as the Speaker Pro Tempore for the 2020-2021 academic year. Respectfully submitted, myself. I have spoken to Brayden extensively about his appointment. He has demonstrated throughout the summer a willingness to go above and beyond. I feel confident that, especially during this time where there is a greater risk that I might become sick, I feel very confident that he would be able to perform the duties of the Speaker of the House and perform them well. So that is why I have asked Braden to be my Speaker pro tempore. With that, I will leave 2 minutes for questions. Same things as before apply. I'm starting questions now. Does anyone have any questions? No one has any questions. I'm just letting the timer run out until someone makes a motion.
Motion to move to previous
I'll move
question.
second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, I will lower all hands. Those opposed, please raise your hand. I see none. So we will move into a roll call vote. Caroline.
Yep. Okay. Just a second. Randomize it again. Okay. Gabby?
Yes.
Ava?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Kanisha?
Yes.
Pilar?
Yes.
Edna?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
Uma?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Ethan?
Aye.
Sebastiano?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Meredith?
Yes.
Mariama?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes. Yes.
The resolution passes unanimously.
All right, thank you everyone. I'll bring Braden back. All right, we have Senate Resolution 3 now. We are almost done, I swear, guys. I will share the screen. The co-sponsors of this resolution are Miles Middleton, Drew Skeleton, and myself. I'm going to ask Drew to read this one to change it.
Okay. Senate Resolution 3, creation of the Executive Advisory Committee for the 2020 elections. Whereas on November 3rd, 2020, the general election of the United States will take place, and whereas various campus organizations and offices recognizing the importance of civic engagement have been involved with efforts to support voter registration, education, and turnout among Wake Forest community members this November, and whereas due to the nature of separation among student organizations, there are natural barriers to cross-organizational collaboration, and whereas per Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, student government has the responsibility to represent the interest of all students and support the operations of beneficial programs for the student body, and whereas Article 2, Section 8, Subsection F of the Student Government Constitution provides for the implementation of the executive advisory committees for the purpose of addressing student constituent concerns, and whereas students have expressed a need for unified effort toward civic engagement and education, citing the 2016 election and events which followed on Wake Forest's campus as a reason for concern for the unity of the campus community this election year, therefore be resolved. 1, effective upon passage of this resolution, an executive advisory committee will be created by the president of student government for the 2020 presidential election. 2, the committee will be nonpartisan and will be tasked with coordinating campus efforts aimed at voter registration, education, and turnout within the Wake Forest community. 3, the committee will advise the Speaker of the House and the Chief of Staff of Student Government according to the provisions of Article 2, Section 8, Subsection F of the Student Government Constitution. 4, the membership of the committee shall include 1 delegate from each of the following organizations: Student Government Senate, Deek Society, You Can Vote, BSA, SAC, Student Advising, APO, and OLAS. And 5, in the event that another student organization becomes involved with bipartisan efforts related to the 2020 elections, a delegate from that organization may be considered for addition to the committee. Respectfully submitted, Miles Middleton, Drew Skilton, and Ali Schwartzberg.
So just to give an overview, I know a bunch of us have heard Drew talk about this over the summer. We've spoken to the OCCE, and they also see a great need for this collaboration. These organizations in the point 4 of the therefore be it resolved are all organizations that the OCCE has said are doing something on campus this semester that is bipartisan or nonpartisan in nature. And so that's why those organizations are the ones that are represented. And so just according to our governing documents, Miles is supposed to initiate kind of the creation of this committee for this purpose. Does anyone, I'm going to set 2 minutes for questions. The timer is starting now. Does anyone have any questions for the co-sponsors of this resolution?
Yes, I have a question. So does each organization listed in lines 25 to 27 endorse the legislation?
They've all met, according to Ali and Drew. They've all met with the OCCE. The OCCE is like the guiding, staff organization here, or structure that's guiding this group, kind of. But to put it all under a unified message, they're all in accordance to know that this elections task force was created.
So yeah, to clarify further, they met with under the OCCE's leadership all, and this is the organizations that were in attendance and acknowledged that they would like a delegate present. Any other questions?
I have another question regarding lines 25 to 27 again. I know, Madam Speaker, you mentioned that these are the organizations recognized as nonpartisan, but it seems readily apparent to me that given the fact that 11% of the student body at Wake Forest is either Asian American or an international student from an Asian country, there is no representation on this task force to represent that body of Wake Forest. So I was wondering if this committee would be willing to either work with Asian student organizations on campus or encourage them to get involved with voting activities.
Absolutely, if they are. To be clear, this is more collaborating the efforts that organizations are already doing. But under that provision 5, that's certainly something we could reach out to student organizations about. If they are doing, they could be included.
I mean, Ethan, would you like to amend that part to add on in case any other organization is interested in being a part of this kind of task force, leaving that option open for them?
Are you referring to section 5?
Section 27. More specifically, just adding on like a little bit more of a piece there to include more organizations in case they feel more interested to hop on.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to move to amend that portion of the resolution.
Sorry to cut you off, Ethan, but that was the timer for questions. If we're discussing a potential amendment, this is debate and discussion anyway. So we will move into debate and discussion. If you feel that point 5 is not clear and should be amended, then this would be the time to bring that up. But I will set a timer for 3 minutes for debate and discussion starting now. Ethan, did you have anything further to say on that?
Well, I have a separate amendment, so I'll address that first. I would move to amend the title of the legislation to include the word general before elections, just because the first lines, or one of the first lines specifies that this would only be for the general elections. So just maybe making that clear.
All right, do I have a second on the motion to amend?
Second.
All right, now we're going to move into questions on the amendment. It's going to be adding the word general here. Does anyone have any questions for Ethan on his amendment? I have to set a timer, so I will be doing a 1-minute timer for questions. can also motion to go to debate and discussion on the amendment, or you can move to the previous question to vote on the amendment.
Motion to move to the previous question.
Second.
Second.
All right, those in favor, please raise your hands.
Raise your hand, Ava.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see the chat function.
Oh yes, Allie on the big screen.
Brayden, are you aware that you're on mute?
I wanted you to hear that, Allie.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'm going to lower all hands unless, I'm sorry, Drew.
As a sponsor, I move this to be a friendly amendment.
So that means that as the sponsors of the resolution, they've accepted the amendment. And that means that we no longer have to vote on the amendment. So we will just amend that. I will amend it right now and then show you guys when I share screen again, because we are still in debate and discussion. All right, so share screen again. This is the amendment that was just made. We are still in 2 minutes left of debate and discussion on the resolution at large.
Ethan, you had another amendment, right? Or was this your only one?
Could you just go to the bottom real quick? I feel like section 5 is sufficient based on what you've told me. So I will withdraw my amendment if there's any confusion on that. But I would encourage the committee to look at incorporating other student groups.
Thank you, Ethan. Definitely great encouragement. Do I have any other points of debate or discussion?
Move to previous question.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand.
It's already.
I'm sorry, I will lower your hands and then please raise your hand. Now please raise your hand. All right, I will lower your hands. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Alrighty, I'm not seeing any hands, so we will move to a vote on the legislation. Caroline will do this with a roll call vote.
Okay. Ava?
Yes.
Pilar?
Yes.
Sebastiano?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Kanisha?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
Mariama?
Yes.
Ethan?
Aye.
Brayden?
Yes.
Edna?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
Meredith?
Yes.
Emma?
Yes.
Okay. It also passes unanimously.
All right, guys, and the resolution has passed unanimously. We are moving on to our last piece of legislation, which is Senate Resolution 4, and then we will whiz through the rest of our agenda, hopefully. This is co-sponsored by the entire elections committee. I will share my screen. Now I'm going to ask Sebastiano if he wouldn't mind reading through this.
Yeah, so whereas due to the unforeseen and unprecedented spread of COVID-19 and the subsequent need to drastically alter Wake Forest University's academic and extracurricular procedures and norms for an unknown period of time, and whereas the statutes could not predict the spread of a global pandemic or the move to remote learning, and whereas Section 1 of the Wake Forest University Student Government Statute states that in order to qualify to run for other offices, a candidate must submit a petition to the Elections Committee. Petitions shall contain only names that belong to the constituency of that office. The number required shall be as follows: President, Speaker of the House, Secretary, and Treasurer, 100 signatures; Senator, 30 signatures. Therefore, be it resolved, 1, we, the Elections Committee, acknowledge that freshmen will have a harder time gathering signatures in person than years past. Therefore, to be put on the ballot, freshman senators are required to collect 20 signatures instead of 30. 2, this will mark an exception to, but not an amendment of, the student government statutes. This resolution shall last until the conclusion of the fall 2020 freshman Senate elections. Respectfully submitted.
Awesome. Thank you, Sebastiano. Does anyone want to speak on it from the co-sponsorship of this resolution? I will do it then. So essentially, our governing documents require that if we are going to amend the content of our elections packet, that we have to do so through resolution. We felt that requiring senators or potential senators to get 30 signatures would be unfair, given that they are not supposed to be in close contact with other people. But with the number of students assigned to a residence hall and that number relative to the number 20, we felt that 20 would be a more fair request. So that is why we have elected to try to lower this to 20 signatures instead of 30. This will only count for this year as stated, and therefore be it resolved. So with that, I will leave 2 minutes for questions.
Motion to move to previous question.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Alrighty, I will lower all of your hands and then you will, sorry, 1 second. My Zoom is acting up. We'll lower all your hands. Could all of you who are opposed, please raise your hands. Not seeing any, so we will move into a roll call vote. Caroline?
Yes. Ethan?
Aye.
Mariama?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Uma?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Ava?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
Edna?
Yes.
Sebastiano?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Meredith?
Yes.
Kanisha?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
Braden?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Pilar?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
that everyone? All right, then the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you everyone so much. I know that that was a lot of legislation, but we whizzed through it. So now we will move on from new business to Senate reports. So any senator, if you have anything to report, now would be the time. All right. If there are no senator reports, then we'll move on to constituent concerns. If you could just raise your hand if you have a constituent concern, I think that would make it the easiest. Yes, Megan.
I just wanted to remind y'all that I had two constituent concerns that we're working on, the Wake line to Haynes Mall and that Target, as well as the water heat in Collins. So that's our committee. So we're working on that. Just wanted to put that out there. So.
All right. Any other constituent concerns? If there aren't, I will just remind you all that there's a forum linked in our Instagram bio. So if you do come across any before next Tuesday, feel free to submit them there or direct others to do so as well. Moving on to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
I was working on an initiative with Director Joe Cassidy from the Campus Rec Center. They've been holding Campus Rec Go, which is like spike ball and cornhole and other socially distanced activities up on the upper quad. And I reached out to them about offering more nighttime programming because I feel like that's really where the risk is, especially when freshmen are concerned. So I reached out to them about extending the hours so that there are more low-risk activities and safe spaces for freshmen to hang out and play during the weekends especially. So they are now offering Campus Rec Go from 8 p.m. to midnight on Friday and Saturday nights. If anyone is interested in volunteering at those events to help staff and run them, it's pretty simple. You just have to like check people in and make sure they're sanitizing their hands and doing the proper protocol before using the games. But it's pretty simple and it's a good way to welcome freshmen into the community. So please reach out to me if you're interested in volunteering at that event. I'm super excited. It was definitely successful this weekend. I saw a lot of people playing on the lower quad, which was great.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. In terms of other announcements, just one briefly from myself and Miles and Victoria-ish. There is a forum on Thursday. You all should have received an email today from Miles and Andrew Logan. A number of student government members are speaking in that forum. It's not a student government event, but go out and support your fellow student government members at this forum. It will be live streamed to YouTube. You can also watch it after the fact if you're not free at that time. Pilar, Rory, myself, Victoria, and Miles will all be speaking at it. So as well as former Senator Ru Cooper. So definitely would encourage you all to attend. Does anyone else have any other announcements? Did everyone download Cork? If you have not downloaded Cork, do it now. Awesome. Well, that is the end of our agenda. So, and congratulations, Brayden. Do I hear a second on the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand. All right. I'm going to say the ayes have it. You're all free to go. I'll see you all next week. Have a good one.